Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Yalla Salesforce. We will continue our journey with Yalla Salesforce Trail Mix. Over the last couple of sessions, we were heads down, understanding flows, going through the trail module by module, understanding different types of flows, getting familiar with flow builder, building the screen flow, auto launch flow, record trigger flows. And then we took screen flows experience to the next level by building reactive screen flows. And after we finished all of this great stuff, we moved to distribute and implement flows, getting more familiar with the screen flow distribution, putting in different places within lighting page, within experience cloud, putting it in utility bar, and so on. And finally, we wrapped it up last session by flow implementation 1, where we understood that we need to design first, put a plan, understand what will be the end goal for that flow, and then how can we develop and deliver high quality flow by following like test-driven development, and finally understanding more about Salesforce governor limit and the transaction limits and so on. Today, we're going to continue our journey with the flow implementation 2, where we will be understanding the different permissions needed, what is the context, user context versus system context, and then how can we take our debugging experience to the next level with debug flow using another user, handling flow errors and fault path. How can we do an error handling in here, and then how can we roll back? How can we mix between like the limits and the transactions, and having the power of doing a rollback for transactions, and finally deploying by developing. We agreed before that we have to develop in lower environment in a sandbox, and then we need to promote this flow to the next environment. Either you are in dev and then you want to move it to QA or integration or even to production. How can we do that using change sets? So far, so good. Any questions? Great. All right. So let's kick it off with the permission. So flow can be complex. They can contain a lot of moving parts and interact with nearly every aspect of Salesforce platform. It's not just about the flow. The flow can deal with records and can deal with objects and with fields. So we need to keep in mind all of these aspects plus the transaction governor limits. So it's a very powerful tool, but with this very powerful tool, there is big responsibility that you need to be aware and think of different aspects of the platform before you say, all right, we are good to go. First thing that we're going to be discussing today, the user permission to flow. And this is itself for running the flow. We are not still, we will take it to the next level to understand the permissions for the objects and fields and so on. But we are starting like from the beginning. Can I run the flow or not? In order to do that, you need to have one of those permissions, which is either at the user level, you have a flow user permission, or you have run flows permission on a profile or a permission set. There is another one which is manage flows as well, which is having like the superpower like with sysadmin and so on. But in order to run it, you need to have one of those. Where can we find this? If I went back to my user in here, settings, and then I went to advanced user details, you will find in here that there is flow user is available for you. So this is the permission we are talking about. How about if I need to do a permission set or a profile? So for the profile, I'll go in here. I am a system admin, and I can just go in here, search for flow, and so post flow, flows version, debugging. So it was run flows. So let me go for run flow. Here we go. So run flows in here is unchecked. Why? Because I'm system admin, so I'm expecting I have manage flow enabled, which will give you all the superpowers. All right, and the next one, we will be creating this permission set, which allow me to add it to certain persona, as we agreed before, that will have this permission set. So far, so good? Lovely. All right, so if we want to see in the permission set, so we'll go for setup in here. I will go for permission sets. And within permission sets, we are looking for a specific permission called this support py. So I will go in there, saying py support. And in here, I will say I need to have run flow. Here we go. Run flows is not enabled, so I will be doing edit, and I will go for run flows. So this one in this org, run any active flow in experience builder sites, run any active flow that distribute the flow lightning component. For the manage flow, allow user to view, create, edit, delete, so all the superpowers. All right, so we're just gonna save it. Now we have a permission set, which if you have it, you will be capable to run active flow. Okay, now we give the permission to run the flow. We have the ability as well to restrict which flows to run and to not run. And we have a guiding principle that we keep repeat over all our previous sessions. When we come to the topic of security, you need to follow the principle of least privilege, just to give the permission that's needed in order to do your job. So far, so good? Lovely. The next section will be talking about the access for the object. I might be able to run the flow, but I might not have access to the object you are planning to create or update or certain fields. That's why let's think about the permission. So when creating the flow, it's easy to get caught up in what the flow should do, get this record, update that record, and so on. But it's important to remember that Salesforce permission still apply. If a user run a screen flow that create an opportunity and you don't have access to opportunity, it's gonna fail. So let's go back and think about the flow planning that we discussed last time. Who will be running that flow? All users within the support department need to run that flow. And then when will the flow run? So this is not applicable because we are embedding this flow within a page. So it's already running in the page. And whenever you go through the wizard, you can create a case and so on. So what data does the flow need to run successfully? So we'll be creating a case. So we need access and create access to the case. And then edit these relevant case fields. So we need access to all of these fields. All right, must be able as well to upload file to this new case. What will the flow do? The flow should ask the user relevant case field values and then create new case, populate it with user case fields values and relate to the contact that flow is completed on. So we are building a screen flow embedded in the screen for the contact, and then we are capturing all the case details, and then we are associating this case to the contact, allowing as well to upload files as they emerge. And this is where flow will be located. This will be embedded on all contacts page. All right, why do the target users need the flow? It's easier for the user for sure to create a case while they are in the contact lightning page, so they can easily create that case. All right, so we need create access. We need edit access for all of these great fields. The flow create cases and set relevant case fields. Therefore, all support users need the ability to create a case, edit relevant case fields. So go to the same permission set that we were, but now we will go for the objects, which is we need just the case. So let's write the case straight in the object settings. And now it's the time for select case, click edit. On the permission, select create and edit. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna come in here saying I need to create and I need to edit, plus I need to give this permission for certain fields. So scroll to the fields and then in the QA reviewer, click edit access. So let's go in there, QA reviewer, and give the edit access. As soon as I give edit, it's gonna automatically give me create. Now I am enabled to run this flow, which will allow me to create and edit the case, plus editing all the fields that we are looking for. All right, so this support permission set now has access to edit all relevant case fields touched by the create case for the contact flow. Without that access, user will receive an error message. Nice. Now, let's talk about context. What I mean by context, when we are going back to flow, open any screen flow that we might have, and then go to this gear, show advanced. You will be able to see in here how to run the flow. By default, how the flow is launched determines whether the flow runs in a context of the user or the system. So you'll have multiple options in here saying, do I need to consider user access while I am doing that? If If we need to consider the user access, we will go for user access. Or if I don't want to consider the object access and FLS and so on, accordingly, I can go for the system context. But within system context, we will find there is an option for with sharing or without sharing. You remember back in the days, we talked about org-wide defaults and what is the record the access for the user. So with sharing means respect sharing. So if it's a private, I will be able to only access the records that I created, or I am on the top of the role hierarchy for one of my like reporters that created. And I might have sharing rules, which are opening up. So all of these things that we learned before start from here, which is sharing settings. And now you have the public and private, public read write, and all of these great stuff. And then we have the role hierarchy, and we have as well the sharing rules, and we have the account teams, and we have opportunity teams, case teams, all of the things that open the sharing. But what we wanted to say that if we did this, we will be considering the record sharing. So if you don't have access, you can't do it. Now, system context without sharing, that means that this is the superpower. You have access to all objects, all fields. You are not considering the org sharing, so you might be seeing the data that you're supposed to not see it. So be careful while you are using this, because this is like a backdoor for the sharing settings within the organization. All right, so screen flows often require object and field access, but not all flows require that kind of access. For example, this is what we were just talking. We picked, if you noticed, we picked only yes, a screen flow. But for record trigger flow, don't worry about user permission. This is because screen flow and the record flows operate with different contexts. Context is another concept found in all types of development. You will hear the same thing on the development aspect as well. Simply put, context is a definition of who is running automation for this flow. So the three: user context, the flow can access the object and feeds and records that the running user can access. So this is the most restricted option, that I am considering myself as the user. Whatever I can do as a user, what I can see as a user, this will be applied. Then if you want to open it up a little bit from record, from object access, from field access, but you don't want to overshare the data, least privilege, always remember. So system context with sharing, the flow can access all objects and fields, but restricted access according to the running user for the sharing. Finally, system context without sharing, the flow access all objects, fields, records, ignoring everything. Superpower. All right, now let's focus on difference between with sharing, without sharing. For a moment, sharing refers to the record sharing, and we just agreed on the sharing settings, org-wide default, sharing rules, manual shares. For example, if a user has read access for cases, but the org-wide default for the case object is set to private, you will be only able to and limited to the cases that you own, that you created or someone shared. Change the owner to be you, which is the owner ID, or you are on the top of the hierarchy for someone else that's reporting to you who owns it. All right, so when talking about contextual sharing, means these sharing settings are in full effect, and without sharing means sharing settings are ignored. System context without sharing grants nearly unlimited access. This is the superpower. You have access to everything. That can be a good thing or a bad thing. It can be good to have flow that checks for open opportunities on the same account when the case is updated. You don't need to give everyone access to opportunities. But it can be a bad, because it will allow you to see data you're not supposed to see, that allow users to view secure personal contact details, which you should not. So far, so good? Lovely. All right. So the flow type determines the default context. If we are talking about record trigger flow or schedule flow, by default, it's a system context without sharing. It's wide open. So you don't have the control. If we went to for a record trigger flow, and we went in here, let's say back, and I went for Flow Trigger Explorer. Let's open any record trigger flow like this one. And I went in here saying show advanced. You will not find the option for run as. It's by default system context without sharing, and there is no optional context. But screen flows, as we were in here, when we went to a screen flow, I have the three options available. By default, it's a user context, but you have the option to say, no, I need it to be a system with sharing or system without sharing. Auto launch flow inherited from a context what ran. So if I have an auto launch flow and I'm using it as a subflow, and the parent flow is system context with sharing or a user context, accordingly, it will inherit by default whatever the parent that called it. And then you have the option to change it. So far, so good. So if I came back in here, saying, let me get a new flow, and then I will need to have auto launch, no trigger. Perfect. And I will say just get records, and that's it. I will need get account. Here we go. Smith here, account. Perfect. None. That's it. Save it. Save it. Great. Now let's see the options. Show advanced, how to run the flow. You have all the options available for you. All right. So again, it inherits by default, but you have the option to change it. All right. So we covered everything from permissions that you need, run flow, flow user, manage flows, and then we talked about the access for the objects, for the fields, for the records, different contexts. This is what we covered so far. Any questions? Great. Awesome. All right. So let's go for the quiz. Which of these options is a valid way to grant general flow access to a user? Enable run flow in a permission set assigned to the user. Enable flow user on a profile assigned to the user. Enable flow in sharing settings. Enable lightning runtime for flow on their user records. What do you think? Okay, so we agreed that nothing related to sharing settings. We didn't mention enable lightning runtime at all. So we have flow user on the profile or enable run flows in a permission set. Yes, flow user is and the user details. Which flow context grants access to all objects and fields, but grant user access to only a record that they already have access to? Exactly, it's a system context with share. Woohoo! We did this unit. Lovely. Any questions? Great. Let's go for the debugging. In order to master any development tool, you need to master the debugging, because you might find things that you are not expecting and you need to debug and trace. And Salesforce is investing a lot of great effort to enhance the debugging for flows. Thank you very much, Salesforce. All right, because it's impossible to anticipate everything that might cause a flow to fail, the best way to ensure users can run your flow is to run flow as your users. So sometimes someone reach out to you saying, I have a problem with your flow. And then you troubleshoot and say, nope, everything from my end is okay. It's running exactly as expected. So how can we solve this problem? You can debug this flow as another user. Accordingly, you will put yourself in their shoes, and then you will be able to see the same errors. How can we enable that? So we'll go for the process automation settings and let admin debug flows as user. All right, so how can we do that? Go back in here, automation settings, and then let's find this. Let admin debug flow as another user. Before we click this guy, if I went to that flow in here and I said debug, you will not be able to click run flow as another user because it is disabled. As soon I enable this guy and hit save and go back to the same thing, which is in here, saying debug, now I have run flow as another user, and then I can put which user I need to do. All right, so debug flow as another user. Let's debug a flow. The close case and task flow gives support user the ability to close a case and all of its tasks with a single click. It runs using a custom button on a custom page. All right, so now let's find this motor breaks down. So let me go back in here. We are talking about case, so let's go for the service app. And let's find the motor breaks. All right, motor breaks down. This is the case we are talking about. Perfect. And then I need to debug if I'm gonna do something in here. So all of what I need the Salesforce ID, which I can pass it as an input parameter for this flow. So how can we get the Salesforce ID? We agreed before, it's in the URL after the name of the object in here. You can find the Salesforce ID. All right, open, close, case, and task flow. So I'll go back in here. Let me close all of these extra stuff. What's called again? Close case. All right, close case and tasks. Awesome. Debug, case ID. Here we go. And then I will hit run. But before we do that, we have a problem. I want to run it as Ezra. So I will go in here, run flow as another user. I will be putting Ezra. And then I will hit run. Now, for me, it's working. For Ezra, it's saying insufficient access on cross-reference. So it's saying in here that, yes, the flow tried to update these records now, which it's saying there is no records, but we know that there are records. But the problem is in the access. Accordingly, this is the problem. How can we read it? So run it, and then you will have the same insufficient access. When you debug, you can click convert to test as well. So, and this is convert to test. So when I do the, let me edit flow, and then debug. This is happening, I believe, not in auto launch flow. This is happening in record trigger flows. This is what we learned before, that in order to create tests, you need to be in a record trigger flow. So I will say in here, get this guy, let's say debug, run even as another user. Here we go. And then let's say run. And here you will find the button for convert to test, which will allow you to go through all of the details, and it's gonna be initialized if you are giving the case that you are expecting, and so on. All right, search cases. So if I did, because I put the ID, but I should be searching the case, and then I will be saying convert to tests, and in here we go. Not this one, this one. All right, so we're gonna initialize everything you are looking for, and then you put the assertion exactly like what we learned last time. All right, so now we need to debug. The error message saying the flow tried to update these records now, that means that there are no records, means it couldn't find any tasks. But we know that the tasks is there. So it's all about now, the next statement is saying insufficient access. Doing some detective work, and let's do the investigation and so on. This flow is an auto launch flow, which means its default context is the system context was shared. All right, so this is a great piece of information. So by default, if it's not inheriting from its parent, and because we are just focusing on the subflow itself or the auto launch flow itself, its system context was sharing. This context means this flow can access only the records that this user has access to. In sharing settings, the org wide default, let's go back in here saying sharing settings, and let's find the activities. Activity. All right, so activity is private. Activity is the task of, or an event. So those are the activities. It's a private. That means if you create it, you will be able to see it. If you don't, you will not have access to update it. All right, so how can we fix that? Either you have the option, either to change the org wide default to be a public read-write, which is going to open it up very open wide for the entire org for no reason, or make, like I will say, the damage local within the flow, and with the keeping the guiding principle of least privilege in mind, the right decision will be change the flow, not to change the org. All right. So in sharing settings, you will find it's a private. That means the task owner can see make changes to that task. Accordingly, this permission set, which doesn't have any overarching data access permission. So you know that we discussed before that we can open up things either by changing the organization by default, OWD, or within the permission set we have view all and modify all, which we said this is opening up things. But again, that means anyone on the support will be able to modify all the tasks across the org, which is again superpower. We don't open that bad. But there is one task in that case we used to debug the flow. It's assigned to you, not to Israel. Okay, so the wise decision in here to change the flow, not the org wide default, neither the permission set to modify all. So to make sense that the flow failed when editing a task Isra, because Isra is not the one who created the task, it was me. That user can't edit tasks that aren't assigned to them. Accordingly, case task to be assigned to anyone. So either need to loosen task security for the entire org, again, org wide default or within the permission set, or change the flow, and the wise decision will be go for changing the flow. All right, how can we do that? Go back in here, open the flow, which is close cases and tasks, and then we will go in here saying show advanced, how to run system context without sharing, and then now we will need to just do done, and then let's debug it one more time, save and debug. And now we have, I hope we still have it. That's awesome. And then I will go in here to say run it as Isra. And as soon as I do that, now we have access. And now we updated this case, which this is the case ID. And then we updated all the related tasks to it. So if we open this case, in here, I am assuming within the related, we will have open activities. This is the task we are trying to update, and it's assigned to Basim, and it's owned by Basim. All right, now we were able to debug as another person, in the same time changing the context to open up the record access. Accordingly, we were able to update the record. Note the task is now set to deferred. Yes, your flow updated the task record when debug ran successfully. This is behavior, one of the key reasons why we should be able to. Behavior is one key reason why I should always build and test the flows in the sandbox, because we are changing the data. But we have an option if we don't want to change the data. So in here, when I say debug again, you have the option to say run flow in a rollback mode. Accordingly, this will not commit. So we are saying that we have before save and after save, and at the very end we commit to the database. Run flow in a rollback mode. This will allow us to not commit this tests, because in case you are in production, you don't want to for sure change this data in production. So you'll be able to say that no, I am running it, yes, but I am doing the rollback as well. Lovely. Any questions? So far, so good? Great. Let's go for the quest. How can you prevent a flow debug run from affecting your organization data? We just mentioned. Just need to debug your flow in a sandbox. Yeah. It's not a production, it's just a sandbox. Run a flow in a rollback mode. Obviously, don't worry about it. It's only data. So I'll go for A and B. When viewing the flow property, what do you click to make how to run flow setting appear? It's show advanced. If you remember in here, edit flow. And when I go there, I want to see extra, show advanced. Let's check. We made the second unit. So far, so good? Lovely. All right. So the next topic is about error handling and how can we handle flow errors. Sometimes you receive an error, which is you can't even understand. An unhandled fault has occurred in this flow, and you can't understand even where you start from. So in order to do that, you can start doing an error handling. So you can provide like more descriptive error messages to the users. So it will guide the user to know what we should be doing next. So when Salesforce prevent these error messages, it means something in the flow didn't work. But the message doesn't say what didn't work. We need to know what's not working in order to be able to react. To make things more difficult, Salesforce shows this error message to the user running the flow, confusing the user with a vague error that contains no details or instructions. Unhandled fault can occur on any flow when it encounters an error. Through its appearance may be different depending on the flow type. In the record trigger flow, it's gonna be something like that. We can't save this record, we hit snag and so on. Regardless of its appearance, whenever an unhandled for occur, the flow stops running and the user must start over. All right, here are a few of the most common causes unhandled error. The flow tries to create a record with a field that running user can't access, so user context. The flow tries to edit a record that running user can't access. Same thing, but for the a record. The flow tries to create a record without setting a required field. I'm trying to create a case, and we have certain required fields that we have to set, and we kept it blank. To edit a record by using an ID with the wrong number of characters, wrong ID, invalid email address, all of these are different options for the flow to be complete. All right, how can we prevent that? You can prevent almost every occurrence of these error messages by taking certain steps. Before you deploy the flow, we are talking about another developer error handling. This is another concept within the development. So all the intent of those implementation 1 and implementation 2 to fill the gap between the experience that the developer know it, part of their development lifecycle while they are developing custom code, versus the admin who used to do a lot of declarative stuff. But now we are bridging that gap because a flow is exactly like it's an automation tool which has all of the considerations and aspects of developing a custom code. All right, error handling is the practice of controlling how errors affect your user and automation. So validation rules. We agreed before, validation rule is one of the tools that on the top of the database when we are trying to save the record, evaluate, and if it's true, it's gonna give you the error message. A form of error handling, you create a validation rule when you anticipate the user doing things that they shouldn't do, want to show a specific error. In Flow, you can add elements that capture details about what went wrong and then present it to a user in a user-friendly error message, giving user more information than the unhelpful, unhandled exception. Both practices provide better guidance to the user for what should happen next. To deal with the most unhandled fault error, use a flow builder feature called fault path. So let's go back in here, open any screen flow for now, and while we are, let me find another one that has some DML, means something dealing with the database, and I can come in here saying fault path. So in here, since it exists, you will find this red dotted line that we do something, and then when we do something, we are rolling back the error message. So this one is like advanced. So it's fault path, and then we have multiple connection to the same fault path. And what we need to do in the fault path that we are rolling back the transaction, and we are showing a clear screen saying this is the error message title and the error message in a screen. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. You can add a fault path to get records, create records, update records, anything that either retrieve, so-called, or like doing a DML, create, update, delete, and so on, or an action element. Show better error message using the global variable Flow.FaultMessage. Salesforce handles flow errors differently for each flow type. Let's look at the screen flow. Has a simple flow there, org that guides salesperson through creating multiple opportunities. However, user running this flow sometimes encounter and handled fault error message, so we will update the flow to handle it. Which flow we will be talking about? Open the guided op create flow. Let's see it. I'll go back in here saying guided. create. This is the flow we will be talking about. What it does, it's just a screen flow collecting some information about the opportunity, then update records, hot account, and then setting the close date for the opportunity, creating the opportunity. All right. So what we need to do, we need to add full path to create opportunity. So we'll go in here saying, what if I tried to create the opportunity, but I couldn't? So, and the label I need to add in here. Now we can do anything. One of them is the screen, and it's gonna be called full screen. And then we need to have a display text, exactly like the one we opened just now. So I wanna, it's a display. So I need to have a display text, and within this display text, it's gonna be a full text. Here we go. What will be in there? It's gonna be flow, and it's gonna be the fault message. All right. So now, if it failed, it's gonna show for me more user friendly. How about adding extra even details? We can go and add the name, which is the opportunity name, and all the details for the opportunity. And as we agreed before, that you have all the option in here that will allow you to do everything you are looking for. So we have a parameter called op var, which is like if you need to have the name of the op var and so on. So that's why they just made it easier for us by doing, but you know that you can insert any resources that you are looking for in here. Accordingly, we ended up having a fault path in case it failed. We'll show you this screen with all of these details of the error message and the details for the opportunity. Done. And let's verify debug, run, and in the opportunity, let's put this one. So save it. All right, so now it's the time for debugging. This is going to create an opportunity. So I'll be hitting run. What is the name of the opportunity? UA generators, stage prospecting, the close date, and then University of Arizona is the intended in here account. And then when I hit next, it got created. Now we need to like force it to go into the full path. So in order to do that, we know that opportunity always require a close date field. So deleting the close date should cause a flow to error. So let's do that. I will go back, remove in here this assignment, and let's save it as new version. Save it, debug it, run it. Let's put another opportunity in here and University of Arizona. Next, now it's failing. The error occurred, required field is missing, close date is missing. So it's crystal clear for this opportunity you are trying to create. So far, so good? Lovely. All right, so let's go for the challenge and wrap it up for today. Add full path to a flow. For each data element in set all address flow, this is the name of the flow. We agreed that it can happen with get records, create records, update records, delete records, and so on. So set all addresses. Let's see this flow. Set all addresses. Add full path coming from set account address element. Set account address element. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna add a screen, and the screen element called error screen. All right, add display text to that screen called fault message. Display text. And in here, this is the fault message. Add flow fault message. Flow fault message. All right, we add it. Add a full path coming from the get contact element. All right, so we're done with this one. Get contact element. Now I want to have it the same fault path. So I need to add fault path, but in here, I will say, go to the same spot. I don't need to keep repeating the same screen. So I'm just adding the fault path, but I'm saying if something went wrong in here, just jump to this error screen. Add the fault path, get contact, and then connect it to the same error screen. Use connect to element menu option. Same thing for update contact elements. All right, so any get, any set, any action, it's the same thing. So in here, connect to element, go to the same screen. Finally, in here, add fault path, and in here, connect it to element. And let's connect it in there, save it, and let's validate, and hopefully we got it right. Let's see. Any questions? So far, so good? Lovely. All right. We made the next unit as well. All right. If there is no questions, thank you very much. We're going to continue our journey in the next session. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.